In this video, we're going to answer the question, are interest rates going up? Now, this is very important for all property investors because if interest rates do go up, this could cause a massive problem for literally hundreds of thousands of property investors. I'll explain exactly why this is a problem. I'm going to talk about if I think rates are going up or not, and also what you can do to protect yourself. I'm doing this video because we've just heard the announcement that year-to-date November for 2021, inflation is up to over 5%. That's the highest it's been for many, many years. So my name's Simon Zutshi. I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon property #1 bestseller. We sold over 100,000 copies. I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network, the largest and longest running network of property meetings around the UK for investors. And I've been investing for 26 years. And when I started investing, I was used to interest rates of about 5–6%. That's what we were paying. The Bank of England base rate was around that kind of rate. However, when the credit crunch came in 2007, 2008, we saw a massive drop in the property market, a massive crash, and also interest rates came down. And the Bank of England rates came to about 1%. And that was lower than it had been for many, many years. And we had that incredibly low rate for about 10 years. Then more recently, we've seen the Bank of England base rate drop to as low as 0.1%. Now, why is this important? Well, most people, certainly people who bought property prior to the credit crunch, would get a mortgage that we based on the Bank of England base rate. So they might be paying 1.5% plus base rate. Now, when the base rate was at 5%, their mortgage would be as much as 6.5%. However, for the last 10 years, they've been paying mortgages of effective pay rates between 2 and 3%. This means their mortgages payments have been very, very low. So most investors have had the benefit of increased cash flow purely because the interest rates are low. Not any special skill or wise investments, just because rates are low. So if rates start to go up, what it means is many property investors will have a lot less cash flow every single month. And also, if they own property in their own name, we know that the government brought in Section 24 back in April 2017. And what that meant was that people who had property in their own name and had mortgages and higher rate taxpayers, they're going to pay a lot more tax on their property. So if interest rate goes up, there's this double bubble of effectively rates going up, which means you're making less profit every single month. But as far as the tax man's concerned, if you own property in your own name and you've got a mortgage, what it means is that you could actually be losing money every single month in terms of cash flow, but on paper making a profit. So not only are you losing money every month, but also you have to pay extra tax to the tax man. Now, this will cause many investors a lot of financial difficulty, and a lot of them might think about selling their properties, which could bring a flood of property onto the market, which could affect the property market and cause the market to come down. So this is why it's so important. Now, why on earth is the latest announcements about having inflation just over 5%? Why is that a problem? Well, historically, the Bank of England will use interest rates as a macroeconomic tool to control inflation. So in other words, when inflation gets very high, inflation is the cost of living, and it's gone up massively in the last 6 months in 2021 because of the increased cost of transport, cost of raw materials in building. So all of costs have gone up basically. You might have noticed in supermarkets, things are costing more. So the average person has less money in their pocket because they need to spend more on all the daily living costs. Things like rents have also gone up massively, which is good for investors, not so good for tenants. So with an increase in the cost of living, the Bank of England will sometimes raise interest rates to slow the economy down. If it becomes more expensive for people and businesses to borrow money because interest rates have gone up, it slows the economy down and thus inflation comes down. However, having come through the COVID-19 pandemic, when we had a real problem with the economy, first of all, in 2020. The second quarter, we had the biggest dip in GDP we've seen for literally 100+ years. Now, we did have a bounce back, and particularly the summer of 2021, we had an incredible bounce back. A lot of people were happy to get out of lockdown. A lot of people had not been spending much money, and they had a lot of money in their bank to come and spend. The property staycation world absolutely boomed as people didn't really want to go overseas. It was very difficult to travel overseas. They wanted to holiday in the UK. So this is what caused a massive boom in the UK economy. And so actually, the UK economy has done incredibly well despite the COVID-19 pandemic. It's bounced back really, really quickly. And that's partly due to the government intervention and all the things they put in, such as bounce back loans and obviously the furlough scheme, which meant that people weren't suddenly made unemployed and all these people added to the unemployment queue. So the government, I think, handled the pandemic and the financial impact incredibly well. But there are a couple of problems. Now, because the government has spent so much money, I think everyone has expected that at some point there's going to be inflation. You see what happens when you print money, there's more money in circulation and you need more money to then buy things. So there's normal price inflation when you print lots of money. And this is going to be a problem that's going to be seen around the world, not just here in the UK. So world banks as well as the Bank of England are going to be having this difficult decision. Do we put interest rates up to control inflation and try and keep inflation down? Or do we need to keep interest rates nice and low to support the economy to help it recover even more? So it's a really difficult measure. So what does it mean for you as a property investor? Well, obviously, when we buy a property, we make sure the property stacks up. In other words, it's got to make money for us today. One of the golden rules I talk about in Property Magic, golden rule number 3, is we must only buy property that gives us positive cash flow. Now, obviously, over time, rental incomes tend to increase, and we've seen a massive increase over 2021. There's been a real shortage of accommodation. We've seen rents go up, which is great for landlords. However, we need to assume, okay, if the rents are going to be at the current rate and we're paying a mortgage at a current rate, how much is that going to make us? Now, if your mortgage rate goes up, if the Bank of England base rate comes up, you might well be on a fixed mortgage at the moment. And by the way, that would be my recommendation. I can't give you financial advice, but what I'm doing with all of my purchases and my remortgages, I'm fixing the interest rate for at least 5 years. Now, what that means is that I'm going to pay the same amount on my interest-only mortgages every single month for the next 5 years, no matter what happens to the Bank of England base rate. Now, at the end of that 5-year term, what happens, I'll go on to the standard variable rate of those particular lenders, which are normally a certain rate plus Bank of England base rate. So in 5 years' time, when you come off those, it depends what's happening to interest rates, but obviously it means that the interest rate might go up. So although you can protect yourself by having a fixed rate, do consider that at the end of that fixed rate period, your payment might go up. So how can you protect yourself? Well, if you're using strategies that give you a very high cash flow, such as houses of multiple occupation, where you rent out individual rooms in the same house to individual people and get a much higher rent, or if you're doing serviced accommodation, which, as I said, has done very well in the staycation boom in the summer of 2021, well, what that means is that you're going to have very high cash flow and you're going to be able to afford for interest rates going up. The problem is people who are going to have single let properties that are not making much cash flow anyway. An increase in rental income might mean, an increase in interest rates, might mean that actually you're not really making any money on your property. I suppose the one good thing you need to bear in mind is that if we have inflation, it means that generally property prices are also going to come up because of that price inflation. And in fact, inflation is good for us as property investors because it erodes the value of our debt. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you borrow £100,000 to buy an investment property and it's an interest-only mortgage and it's a 20-year mortgage. So we buy the property now, and over that 20 years, the value of that property is probably going to go up. It might come up and come down because the property market is cyclical, but over time, it generally goes up. So that means in 20 years' time, hopefully the value of the property is a lot more than we bought it for 20 years before. But the debt we owe is still only £100,000. Now, because of the effect of inflation, £100,000 in 20 years buys a lot less than £100,000 right now. So inflation actually erodes the debt in real terms. It's still £100,000 of debt, but the buying power of it is far less. So in fact, inflation is really good for us as property investors as long as it doesn't have too much of a detrimental effect on interest rates. So my belief is that we will see some interest rates in the UK, I think they'll probably come in towards the end of 2022. I think the Bank of England, although they're under pressure because of inflation, might want to put them up. I think they're going to really resist to support the economy. However, I'm also pretty sure we're not going to see a massive hike in interest rates. I'm pretty sure if it happens, we're going to see quarter or half a point increase each time. Now, they might decide to do that every month for a number of months, so we might see rates creeping up like that, but I think it's going to be a gradual increase. So my message on this video is, if you're buying a property or remortgaging, maybe fix the rate for as long as you possibly can. You're going to pay more than a variable rate, but maybe it's better to minimize the risk. Also, make sure you're doing strategies to give you really good cash flow, because then that's going to help you in case rates do go up. You're going to be able to afford the increased monthly cost of that mortgage. So as always, make sure you know what you're doing. Education is going to help you, going to take away some of the uncertainty. That's my thoughts on our interest rates going to go up. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you like this video, please comment below. Please tick and like the video. That will help other people see it. And also, you should be subscribing to this channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon. Then you're going to get notified when new videos come up. We're always adding brand new content, putting lots of inspirational case studies to help you be a more successful investor. Now, I've lined up another video for you I think will be of interest. And also, below there's a link to access some brand new online training that I think is going to help you to become a more successful investor. So I encourage you to click on that link and come and join the live online training, which I know is going to give you massive value. So until the next video, remember to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. Hey, I do hope you've got massive value from watching this and the other videos on this YouTube channel. I've prepared some extra training all about purchase lease options, which is the most powerful tool you could use to control property and works with every other property strategy. You really do need to make sure you understand about this. That's why I put this extra training together for you at no cost. All you have to do is click on the link below the video, come and fill in the details and you get access to that training. And I really think you should definitely do it right now. I've also lined up another video for you that I think might be interesting for you to watch as well. So until the next video, remember to invest with knowledge, invest with skill, and click on the link and come and join me for that additional training all about purchase lease options.